Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Michelle Donayo. I am a business strategist and growth consultant here to help entrepreneurs grow their business in the most efficient and profitable way possible. So I like to tell everybody, consider me your personal GPS. Just like you have a GPS in the car that gets you from point A to point B, I am your GPS that gets you from point A to point B in your business and helps you grow and scale where you currently are and where you would like to get to. And I'm so excited today about the interview that we're about to get into and the topic, because it is such a topic that it's all over the place right now, and there's so much information out there that some of it's good, some of it's bad, some of it's confusing for any of us non-legal people. I know for myself, I know I need it, but I don't know why, and I don't really know what the best way to utilize it is. And so I was so happy to connect and collaborate with Nicole, and she's going to introduce herself a little bit further. But this is such an important topic. What the heck is a privacy policy, and why do I need one? And with all of the GDPR compliance issues that have come through in the past year, this topic is even more prevalent now. So I'm not going to take too much time. I'm just going to pass it right over to Nicole. We're going to dive right in, and I'm going to buzz in with some questions as I see it. But Nicole's got a great presentation set up for us, and she's going to give us probably so much information. Our heads are going to be spinning, but we're going to do our best to dive in and break it down as easy as possible, because that's the name of this game, is breaking it down in the most easy, strategic way possible. So Nicole, go ahead and take over.
Hey guys, I am so excited to be here. Let me share my screen very quickly. All right, so let's jump right in. My slideshow button is hid under. We'll do it this way. Or not. There it goes. Sorry about that, technical difficulties. All right, guys, so I'm here to chat about what the heck a privacy policy is, and do I need one? Do you need one? If you have an online business, short answer, if you take nothing away from this presentation, yes, you need one. So who am I? I am a wife, a toddler mama, a licensed attorney in California, and I am also a small business owner. I offer legal templates for other online entrepreneurs to make sure that they are legally protected. So today I'm going to chat about 4 things: what a privacy policy is, what your privacy policy should include, where it should go, and touch briefly on GDPR, why you should take note of it and be aware of it, even if you don't live, work, or do business in the European Union or the UK. So before we get started, I'm going to give you my standard attorney disclaimer. Everything I chat about today is legal information and education. It is not legal advice, and it doesn't create an attorney-client relationship between us. I am a licensed attorney, but I am not your attorney. I'm a United States attorney, so everything that I chat about is going to be from the perspective of United States law, and you definitely want to make sure that you consult with an attorney in your local area about things that pertain to your particular business and your financial needs. So let's jump in with, what is a privacy policy? So your privacy policy basically puts your website users on notice that you're going to be collecting their personal information and what the hell you're going to do with it. Just a quick side note, the email address that you probably 99% chance are collecting on your website in exchange for whatever your freemium or opt-in or discount offer is, it's personal information, guys.
So that's basically what you're saying, is regardless whether or not you're collecting name, address, phone number, it doesn't matter. Email address counts solely as personal information, regardless if you get no other information at all.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump into exactly kind of what the definition of personal information includes, but just the big one that resonates with most entrepreneurs is an email address, because we all know building your email list is key. So I like to make that just forefront, because a lot of people think, oh, it doesn't pertain to me. And guess what, guys? It does. So
right.
Quick history lesson. I'm going to be very brief because I could go on and on about this, but the California Online Privacy Protection Act was actually the very first act in the United States to require any business doing business online with Californian residents to post a privacy policy to their website. So if they're collecting personal information from any Californian residents, they have to have a privacy policy. And so the definition of personal information in this act, pretty expansive. The list just keeps going. So it's your first name, last name, email address, physical address, telephone number, social security number, birthday, height, weight, basically any information that can be used to contact a Californian website viewer physically or by email, which is a lot, guys. It's very, very expansive. So online business owners kind of quickly figured out that I don't know where my website users reside. They could be in Timbuktu, they could be in California. I need a privacy policy. And here's the big thing, is that under CalOPA, as it's abbreviated, the fines are $2,500 per violation. And that means if one person visits your website from California, $2,500 fine. Another person visits, $2,500 fine. Each individual visit, when your website is non-compliant, is a violation. So the fines add up quickly.
Who is the party that like goes after that? Like who's tracking that information? Just the residents in general?
Yeah, so under CalOPA, it's actually typically enforced by a regulatory agency. So I like to tell people that the chances of being fined as a small business are, minimal.
Right.
But it's possible. As we get into GDPR, you'll find out why it's a little bit more scary. So
right, yeah, definitely.
So what should your privacy policy include? And this is where a lot of people, their eyes glaze over. They think, holy crap, this is a lot of information, but you got to be aware of it, guys. So I'm going to run through it. There's 6 things under CalOPA that you are required to include in your privacy policy. And I'll run through them very quickly. So what personal information that you collect, what third parties you share that information with, how your website users can contact you to change information, say they've changed their email address and they need to amend it, how you deal with do not track requests. So if you don't know what a do not track request is, in your settings, you can actually check that you don't want to be tracked. I know you can go incognito now in some website users settings. And so basically you have to say, look, if you're going incognito and you've got this do not track request set up, does your website function still? Are there things that turn off and don't work? So you need to kind of be aware of the functioning of your website. You want to make sure that you provide how you're going to notify them if there's changes to your privacy policy, because as things happen, as things are enacted, legislation's always changing, you're going to have amendments. So you want to make sure that you let them know whether you're going to be sending an email, posting something to your website. It's got to be there. You got to let them know. And then the 6th thing is the date that the privacy policy went into effect, because they need to know that they're reading the most current version of the policy. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot, guys, and I know that's probably overwhelming, but there's also a very specific place that you have to put your privacy policy. And CalOPA actually requires that you clearly and conspicuously post your privacy policy. Well, what the hell does that mean? So there's kind of 2 practices. The first is literally dumping the text on your homepage so people can read it, which is so not aesthetically pleasing. It's not something that most people do. So the most common practice, if you've viewed websites, which if you're an online business, it's a daily thing, you see in the footer privacy policy. And so that is an allowed method. You can put a hyperlink on your homepage, but you want to make sure that it includes the word privacy and it's all capitalized. And this is called a browse wrap in internet law. It basically means that it's in the footer of your website. It's just wrapping like each page of your website.
And that's got to be capitalized.
Yes, it's got to be capitalized, and also know that it has to be in text and color that's different from the rest of the page. So you can't capitalize it and have it in black text up against a black background so nobody can see it. That doesn't comply. It's got to be clearly and conspicuously posted. So here's my challenge, is I say that the better practice is to actually require your website viewers to affirmatively agree to your privacy policy before they give you that personal information, whatever it is from that laundry list of things. If it's an email address, their birth date, if you offer a product and you give a discount, on their birthday, whatever it is that they give you. I'll explain why as we get into GDPR, but basically what you do is next to your opt-in, you would have a checkbox or a button that says I agree, or they check it to confirm that they agree to your privacy policy.
That makes sense. I think a lot of these email opt-in and the lead pages, landing page softwares, they have that as an option now. I know, especially once GDPR came into play. So it's probably just an extra setting you have to put into, I would assume. Most of them do it for you correctly.
Correct. Yeah. So I use ConvertKit. That's my email service provider. And so it doesn't necessarily have a checkbox on the home form, but if you enable it, then it'll push them through to another screen where they have to check it. So this is an example of my opt-in page, just so you can see what I'm talking about. The user has to affirmatively check the boxes to say that they're agreeing. So that's my personal preference.
Can I ask you a question here? You can go back for 1 second. On those checkboxes, although you can't, you can put them there, can you make them a required field so that they cannot, so they have to opt in and they have to give you those the privacy policies and whatnot. You can make that a required field. So if they don't agree or accept both those two things, they don't get your freebie. Is that, you can legally do that?
So there's a difference between you can do it and whether you can legally do it. So yes, you can do it, but as I get into GDPR, you're going to find out that under GDPR, you have to be able to provide them the opt-in, whatever it is you're offering, independent of your marketing emails. So
that's what I thought, that it was like that, because somebody had told me that you can make it a required field, but like on my email provider, you can't make it a required field. So I was thinking that must not be legal if the software is not allowing that.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is you want to make sure that you are offering them your freebie free of all of the follow-up marketing that ensues. Back in, old age marketing days, the thing was to get the email address and then you just bombarded people with your marketing promotional, material.
Right.
The issue is that now data privacy laws are kind of finally catching up so many years later. Consumers don't want all of this crap in their email inboxes. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to have all these buy now promotions that they get spammed with. And so that's where legislation is finally catching up, and they're trying to really put the onus on the business owners to not have those shitty marketing tactics.
Right.
So yeah, as we get into GDPR, you want to know that it's two separate things. You have to be able to offer your freemium independent of your marketing emails, which is if you see that first checkbox, they have to consent to the marketing emails. If they don't, they get the freebie. If they do, then they're put into my marketing funnel.
Gotcha. Perfect. That's the way mine is set up too, but I wanted to double check on that.
Yeah, so now let's get into GDPR, and I'm going to give you guys kind of a little disclaimer. It's complicated. It's basically the subject of its own training, and it's relatively new. So the GDPR is the General Data Protection Regulation. It went into effect in the European Union and the UK in May of 2018. If you take nothing away from this presentation, the one thing that you do want to know is that it applies to basically any business that has even one person provide them with personal information on their website that lives, works, or does business in that lives or works in the EU or the UK. So even if you think, look, I'm a US or a Canada-based business and I don't have to worry about this, yeah, you do. Because somebody could stumble upon your website and think, oh, that freebie sounds amazing, and opt in, and you're not going to know if they're a UK resident or if they live in the EU. And GDPR requires affirmative consent. So those checkboxes that I was saying were best case scenario practices, they're required by GDPR. So
yeah, I mean, and in the age of social media, you really don't know where you're connecting with people at all. So if you're doing any kind of promotion or any kind of marketing on social media, you're crazy not to take the GDPR compliance issues seriously, because honestly, you could be connecting with people from all over the world, and there's no reason why limit that, why limit what you're doing because you're not GDPR compliant. When you have access to 2.1 billion people on Facebook alone, why take that risk? It's not worth taking that risk at all.
It's not, and we're going to get into fines here in a minute. So I just like to tell people the reach of the interwebs. It's crazy how you think you're chatting with somebody, in the US, because we're US entrepreneurs, and it turns out they are in the UK, or they're in South Africa, or, it's crazy who you connect with these days.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's a little bit more under GDPR. It requires that your website viewers' consent to your opt-in be freely given, specific, informed, and unambiguous. And they have to take some sort of affirmative action to say, yes, you can process my information. So again, this is why checkboxes are so important. You want to make sure that it's very clear what they are opting into and that they are actually affirmatively agreeing to opt in. So this definition is also pretty expansive under GDPR. Processing personal information includes collecting, recording, retrieving, storing, disclosing, or using personal information. So if you're thinking, I don't do any of this, I don't need to worry about a privacy policy. If you have a website, yes, you do. If you are an online business that has a website, you need a privacy policy. It's an expansive definition. I can't say that enough, is that these definitions are so expansive, they're handing the power back to the consumer at the end of the day. And so what is personal information under GDPR not only takes all of the things that I listed under CalAPA, but it adds a whole other expansive component. It's basically anything relating to a person's physical, physiological, genetic, mental, economic, cultural, or social identity. So
in other terms, anything, it doesn't matter. You don't, everything and anything. If you're talking to somebody in the UK, you need to have a GDPR.
Exactly, because it includes IP addresses. So I know most of us have Google Analytics or something set up on your website that has cookies, basic cookies. Now under GDPR, you also have to have a cookie opt-in. So you have to make sure you have a privacy policy, you have to make sure you have a cookie opt-in, all of the things. So if you're saying I don't have to worry about GDPR and you're an online business, you're wrong. You take nothing else away. Just know these are things that you need to be aware of. And on top of all of the fun things that GDPR added, it's also added 6 more things that our privacy policy has to include. They are how and why you collect personal information, what you do with that personal information, how you keep it safe, how long you retain it for, if you share or sell personal information with or to third parties, and like I said before, if you use cookies. So that's 12 things now, guys, that you need to be aware of. And I'm going to chat briefly, although I've kind of intersperse it throughout this conversation about why you need to be aware of GDPR, even if you don't live or do business in the European Union or the UK. So, like we chatted about, you never know where your website viewers are going to reside. If you have cookies on your website, if you have an opt-in, anybody can opt in, your cookies are enabled, you need the privacy policy. You want to make sure that you are GDPR compliant. I know that there's a lot of mixed talk out there from other legal specialists saying, well, there's ways that you can, track IP addresses and separate UK versus non-UK. And there's 2 things that I want to say about that. One, bullshit. Because under the GDPR, you are actually not allowed to exclude EU or UK visitors from your website just because they live in the EU or the UK. So if you think that's a tactic you're going to use, don't do it. It runs afoul of the regulation. And as we get into fines here in a minute, you're going to find out why you want to make sure that you're actually paying attention.
Well, I mean, and the reality is, let's be honest, as entrepreneurs, it's not our job to be tied up in all of this nonsense. Just protect yourself and know that you can do business with whoever. I do not have time to be sitting here tracking IP addresses, nor do I want to. I mean, that's just crazy. So, I mean, I can't even see why, as an entrepreneur, you would want to do that unless you have a business that is specific to the U.S. and you absolutely 100% cannot do business with the UK. But even then, you still would want to have this GDPR compliant privacy policy in place and all of this, just because if they happen to get to your website, you might not be able to do business with them. However, if they get to your website, you still want to make sure that you have those things in place. So all of these, there's always a gray area to every policy. In any strategy, I see it all the time in business strategy. My accounting background, I see this all the time, guys. There is always a gray area. There is always a limit you can stretch, but why? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense if you are a serious business owner looking to scale, looking to grow. Just get this stuff in place. It doesn't make sense not to.
Yeah, and I'm going to use myself as an example because I'm one of those entrepreneurs who is very US based. So I'm licensed in California. My templates are drafted for US entrepreneurs. It's highly unlikely that somebody in South Africa is going to come buy one of my legal templates, but my opt-in is an entrepreneur's guide to growing a business. And there's tips and tricks in there about running like an e-commerce business, about having an online business. And so no matter where you're located, that's something that could resonate with you. I've got to make sure I'm GDPR compliant.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't save you money in the end. And that's, I think, ultimately, it's going to cost you money to put a program in place that tracks IP addresses. Don't think you're going to be able to do that for free either. So, it's just not even worth it.
Well, and so the fun thing about this IP address issue is that, say there is a European Union resident that has traveled to the United States and is using a computer in the hotel. That IP address is going to be in the United States, but they're a UK resident. So there's some gray area there, guys. It's not a very fine-tooth comb. Like, there's going to be things that could mess up, and I'm going to get into fines a little bit here. So fines under GDPR are 20 million euro or 4% of the business's worldwide revenue of the prior financial year, whichever is higher. And here's the fun fact. So we chatted a little bit about how the regulatory agency is the one that's enforcing CalAFA in the United States and around the world. Well, under GDPR, individual people can bring a lawsuit. They can complain to a supervisory authority, and all of a sudden you're facing these fines from the EU because somebody went to your website and you don't have a privacy policy. And the regulation is so new. There's no case law yet, guys, about how this is going to go and whether people are going to just start bringing suits and make money. But yeah, I foresee that there's going to be a lot of case law coming about this issue in the near future. Mm-hmm. We have a little bit more guidance, but just I wouldn't expose myself to such high fees.
Right. It's not worth it.
So here's just a quick summary of the takeaways. I know this is a lot of information. And most people like to just kind of put their blinders on and not focus on the legal side of things. But if you have an online business, you need a privacy policy. You want to make sure it's posted on your website and linked anywhere that you're collecting personal information, especially if you're collecting email addresses for your opt-in. And one other thing that I see a lot of people do on Facebook in particular is have a Facebook group. So if you have a Facebook group, I'm sure you know now that you can set it up so that you can ask 3 questions before you admit people to your group. And I'm seeing a lot of entrepreneurs, one of their questions is, give me your email address. Well, so people are providing you their email address thinking that it's a requirement to get into your group. Behind the scenes, you've now added them to your email list and you start sending them marketing materials. It's 2 very, very different things. And now that you see the exposure under GDPR, all it takes is one person living in the EU or the UK to complain that they've now been added to your marketing list and had no flipping idea, and you've got a lawsuit on your hands, or you're having to settle at a costly price because you weren't aware of these requirements. So I always tell people, link your privacy policy, or better practice, just include a lead page inside your Facebook group so that it's like them going to your landing page or your website, because you want to make sure that you're following these policies basically. And you do want to make sure that you're aware of GDPR, no matter what, no matter where you live. It's just something to be aware of.
Yeah, and I mean, you pointed that out to me, so I appreciate that you did that. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. Entrepreneurs don't know what they don't know, and so Facebook puts these things in place, and a lot of these websites and social media platforms, they put these tools in place that allow us to better connect with people and the people that are joining our groups, but it's still on you. Don't think that Facebook's going to take the onus for that if somebody comes after you. And so again, that all falls into, we don't know what we don't know. And when she said link your privacy policy, guys, this is not like it's not hard. Inside that text where you say that you're collecting email addresses, and if you're most people use it to say, hey, if you'd like a copy of my da-da-da-da-da, give me your email address and I'll provide it to you. All you have to do is put in parentheses, because I wasn't really sure either, so all you have to do is just put a link to your actual privacy policy. So michelledonato.com/privacy. Whatever your distinct URL is for your privacy policy, that's all you need to do as far as that. But like she said, if you can pin to your top post when people get in there a link to your landing page, protect yourself there. And even if you collect email addresses, do it in both places, because now at least if they've given you your email address, now they've also opted in. So it just protects you in that double opt-in, and it's so much easier. So if you've got a really great landing page and a really great opt-in, people will want to opt in. You don't need to trick people into getting their email addresses, because ultimately it doesn't serve you from an email standpoint to put them on your list if you're tricking them into getting on your list, number one, and it doesn't serve them. So, and it could open you up to a whole slew of issues that you're not looking for.
Yeah, and double opt-in really is your friend. If you're just going to be linking your privacy policy in that area, because again, there's got to be some affirmative action on their part. So you either need to have language that says, I am affirmatively agreeing to this privacy policy, and by typing my email address, I'm agreeing. Or again, just having that separate land-in, or having that second double opt-in that sends them the email that they have to confirm, I agree to be subscribed to get your marketing emails. It's, making sure you're covered at the end of the day. And this was so much, and I know it's a lot, especially if you don't have that kind of legal mindset. So you can actually check this out on my blog, What the Heck is a Privacy Policy and Do I Need One? And I actually break it down, and there's some more juicy tidbits in there for you as well, because we can only so much.
Yeah, and there will be an actual link below posted inside of the video here as well, so you'll be able to click right on that and link to it. And I know at the time of this interview, it's January 23rd, so Data Protection Day is coming up. So I believe for those of you that are looking for a privacy policy, I personally have purchased Nicole's template. It's an amazing template. It's very, very, very simple to use. You get it, and everything's highlighted. It tells you what you need to fill in, what you need to be putting in there, and that also points out if there is an area that you really need to be checking with your state agencies on and all of that. So I do highly recommend her privacy policy. It's GDPR compliant, extremely easy to use. And with all of these things coming up, again, this is truly about just covering yourself, covering and protecting yourself, because we're in business to make money, not get sued, right? So protect yourself, spend it's less than $100, and I know she's got a great offer for those of you through the end of January, and I just can't stress it enough, and that's why I really wanted to make sure that we got this interview in. It's the beginning of the year, and it's regardless whether you're listening to this in January or whether you find this replay and you're listening in June, it doesn't matter, because this information is still going to be relevant and such an important topic. Yeah. So thank you so much, Nicole, for that. And I know on your website, if you want to point them in the direction of how they can get to your privacy policy, that would be great.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. And if you are interested in checking out my privacy policy template, you can head to NicoleShrioden.com/legal shop. And actually all of my templates are there. But my GDPR compliant privacy policy template is there. And if you are catching this before the end of January 2019, I'm actually running a 20% off sale of my privacy policy templates in honor of Data Privacy Day on January 28th. So all you have to do is enter the word privacy at time of checkout up until January 31st, and you will get 20% off.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. And, feel free to connect with Nicole on her website right through there. You can connect with her if you have any further questions. Again, Nicole is not here to create a client-attorney relationship with you. However, as education, she may be able to answer any additional questions that you may have. However, you can also consult with a local attorney in your area. But if you're just looking to get that privacy policy in place, if nothing else, if you have no other templates and nothing else in place, I highly, highly recommend that you get this privacy policy in place so that you can just know that whatever you do from here on out is compliant, and you're not going to have to worry about that. It's just taking that stress. It's one less thing you have to worry about, and it's not something you need to worry about as entrepreneurs. We have far better things to keep us up at night than worrying about whether or not we're GDPR compliant.
Yeah, no, agreed.
So awesome, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And again, you can link to both, her blog will be both on her website as well as on my blog. And if you have any further questions, you can contact either one of us, and I'll make sure to get you connected. So thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day, and we will talk very soon.
Thanks.